Hi, everybody. So the question that I've been asked is, what have we learned so far? It's quite a tricky question. All right. As you know, you've known this slide, every now and then something arrives where everything changes. Electricity, mobile phones. And in 2008, we had this magic event that happened, the iPhone that arrived, which was such a stunning way of communication that suddenly communication became free in healthcare. We had a visual platform that allowed us to communicate directly with customers. Yesterday, as I mentioned, one of my favorite authors, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who wrote this beautiful book called 100 Years of Solitude. And it's very difficult for us to define what is coming now, because technology is moving so incredibly fast that it's impossible for us to keep up. In the first opening phrase of 100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel Garcia Marquez says, many years later, as Colonel Oriana Buenda was facing the firing squad, he remembered that distant afternoon in the past when his father had taken him to discover ice. It was a beautiful phrase. And then he continues to say, the world was so recent that many things lacked names, and in order to indicate them, it was necessary to point. We are finding ourselves in the same situation today with connected health. Things are moving so incredibly fast that it's impossible for us to predict the future. However, to even have an idea of what the future is going to be, we have to look into the past. But we only have 4 or 5 years of history of connected health to be able to look. The first thing that we've learned is that the US and Europe are completely different. As you know this picture, I think you've all seen it before. Europe, we come from civilization. Sorry, I don't mean to insult anybody here, but people just tend to have a different health profile in the US than what they have here. So in the US, activity, fitness, is a much bigger obsession than what it is in Europe. In Europe, I've seen people in Amsterdam riding a bike while smoking a pipe. You don't see that in California. So in the US, people are obsessed with wellness, whereas in Europe, it's more a question of healthcare. Connected health has brought us something amazing, which is a new management tool. We are now starting to being able to manage diseases. 2 new notions, management of disease over time, and then predictive health rather than curative health. So now we're actually looking at chronic diseases from a long-term basis. The most expensive diseases worldwide, that doesn't matter on which healthcare system you're looking, are diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and overweight, which is not a disease, but which is a great symptom that brings on other diseases. So for the first time now, we have a tool that is transforming the user into an actor of public health. He is now being able to understand what he has to do to actually get better. One of the great things about connected health is that if you look at sorry, I did not move forward. There you go. The cost of diabetes today is ramping up on an incredible scale. We have $250 billion direct spend on the diabetes in the US, and about half that in Europe was $100 billion. That diabetes is today the world's most expensive disease. It accounts for about 50% of all healthcare spend in a lot of countries. $250 billion is a lot of money. So now we're having new tools to help us manage this diabetes. I just couldn't help but put the picture, this beautiful picture of, as you can see, the new iHealth glucometer, the BG5, of which I'm particularly proud, which was presented during the WW 2014 show 2 days ago as one of the first devices that is connected to the Apple Health Kit. I can't help myself. Next, the big thing that we've learned is that the pharma industry is really becoming involved in connected health. Needs to become, is wanting to become, and will become involved in managed healthcare. Pharmaceutical industry needs it. It's not just a question of selling medications. The pharma industry is realizing that we need to start helping to manage patients rather than managing diseases. And connected health is a perfect tool for that. We are also learning that our population is changing. This is a graph projection of the population in Europe. As you can see, in a few years, there'll be a lot more older people than younger people. People are living longer and longer. Today, the life expectancy of a man is 79 years old, of a woman is 82 years old. In a few years, my children will live to be 100, I hope. So that means that they will live longer lives, but they will also bring in more diseases, because diseases tend to declare themselves as people get older. Something we're going to have to care. The thing is about healthcare is that healthcare touches 100% of the people. Sickness only touches sick people. Healthcare will touch all of us, and in the future, as we get older, we'll need more and more healthcare devices and healthcare services. We've also learned that for the first time, you are becoming an actor of your health. You get to choose who your doctor is. You get to choose who you want to work with. A couple of years ago, or even still today, if you ask a patient, who's your doctor? Who takes care of your health? He's going to say, my doctor takes care of my health. In the very near future, connected health means that the patient is going to answer, it's me and my doctor who takes care of my health. That's another advantage of connected health that is coming. But basically now, the patient becomes himself an actor of public health. We've also learned, for the first 3 years, we at iHealth, we focused on the US market. The US market is now mature. We are selling more connected devices in the US than unconnected devices, because connection has become an expectation of the consumer. If a person goes and buys a blood pressure monitor in the US, he says, well, of course I want a connection. Duh, I can share my information if I have a connection. Here in Europe, connection is still seen more as a gadget. It's a geeky thing. It's for people like us, trendy people. But the average person on the street does not really understand what connected health is about in Europe. It's become, in the same way as when you buy a computer, you always expect to have internet. You don't ask, does my computer have internet? In the US, people buy a connected device, they expect the connection. It is no longer a surprise. Main move also in the US is health management for employees. Companies are starting to push this more and more. It still has not really appeared that much in Europe, but it is coming. But in the US, you have companies like Keys that offer health management programs for the patient so that the people can work harder, not miss any work, and long-term create a saving for the industry. That has not yet hit Europe. Then we have the next big step is that suddenly in Europe, there's an obsession with data safety. It's a fake obsession. The fact is that all the manufacturers treat data in the correct way. The data is secure. The only person who has access to the data is you, the patient. We do not have access to this data because it is on a secure cloud. But more people do not really understand what the cloud really is. People, from the manufacturing point of view and from the insurance point of view, everybody looks at the cloud and says, the cloud is coming. It's going to rain money on everybody. But people don't really understand what the cloud is. Right now, the cloud is just a tool for stocking data. It is not yet really used as managing data. So we need to get over this hurdle of fear of the cloud, fear of data privacy. We are also learning now that for the first time, we're starting to get enough data to do data for good, epidemiological studies. This is a study that we're now doing in the US with American Heart. 1 million people are sending their blood pressure every day to American Heart. That's data for good, that people just send their data because it's anonymous data anyway. All they want to do is just send the information to foundations such as the Heart Foundation, the Diabetes Foundation, so they can use the data to better understand the diseases. And we're also finding that we need more and more to offer interconnectivity of devices. We need a global solution. We need for all of the manufacturers to start using the same protocols to be able to share information. Look, I'd like to tell you a little story. I still got 1 minute left, so I'll be quick. I recently read the biography of an astronaut who went into outer space. First man who actually went around the moon, 1968. It was called Apollo 8. Because in fact, in a few years earlier, the Russians had sent Yuri Gagarin in space, and the Americans thought, we need to catch up. So they said, we're going to send a man around the moon. So in April 1968, the vessel left. And in his biography, the astronaut, he said this amazing story. He was saying that as he went around the dark side of the moon, which was epitomized by Pink Floyd in their beautiful album, as he went around the dark side of the moon, he was suspended in absolute silence. looking through that window, and he looked, and as he went around the dark side of the moon, he saw something amazing. Something that nobody had ever seen in the whole history of the world. He saw our planet floating in outer space. It was a beautiful moment, completely silent. And as he was looking at the planet floating, he heard a tapping on the window. This is not a joke. He started hearing this tapping, and he couldn't work out where it was coming from. So he started looking around, because he figured maybe 1968, extraterrestrials, little green men. He got a little bit nervous. And he thought maybe it was a pencil that had fallen over that was knocking against something. And it took him about 3-4 minutes to realize that what he was actually hearing was the sound of his own heartbeat. I mean, it takes a special set of circumstances to hear the heartbeat of an industry. We have this perfect combination of science, of medical knowledge, of being able to share the information. But my main message right now is that we, all of us, manufacturers, geeks, need to work in the same direction so that we can all hear the heartbeat at the same time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.